One of the things that excites us the most about the sport of Formula One is the fact that all of these tracks are so dang dangerous.
It's the world's most dangerous sport. It has to be.
There's no way it's not. I mean, think about it. Guys running full speed towards each other with football pads, fine. How about going 200 miles an hour towards a wall, and if your brakes fail, you're done?
Rain stops a football game. It doesn't stop them going 200 miles an hour.
It doesn't stop them at all.
Welcome to Turn 1, a Formula One podcast. Now entering the grid. Here are your hosts, Thomas and Jeremiah.
Welcome back to another episode of Turn 1. We're your hosts, Jeremiah
And Thomas.
Today, I think we are going to be going over the most dangerous tracks in Formula One.
Most dangerous tracks, and this has been covered in so many articles, and you can look this up, but I think the articles hit a couple of the big ones, which will probably overlap. But there's some that these articles mention that we just don't get, like the Red Bull Ring, being a dangerous track. I don't understand.
And that might just be our own ignorance for not knowing
Sure.
the history of the track. But in terms of since we've been watching, that has to seem like one of the most lighthearted tracks of all of them.
That one, and there's other ones. We might talk a little bit today about Monaco. Monaco might be, and where I think a lot of these people get their numbers is they look up number of safety cars or they look up number of crashes. But we're talking about danger, not I bumped a wall and my car is broken and I can't race anymore. What tracks are putting these drivers in terrifying situations? Now, this is meant to be a little bit entertaining from the standpoint of danger, right? That brings a lot of people to the sport. But also, these are things to watch. These are tracks to appreciate. This is to give you more insight into how the drivers operate. These are why you see the videos of like Pierre Gasly doing the tracks blindfolded.
Those
because they're dangerous.
Now, we do have some honorable mentions. Obviously, the Nürburgring. But we decided to do just current tracks.
Right.
So that's why that doesn't make the list. But we do have to pay homage to Nürburgring. 78 driver casualties. And that's just the ones that are like the professional events that are held. They also have testing, practice sessions, and then free drive where you can just go and drive on the track. And they don't record any of those.
That number and whatever like the Indianapolis 500's number is should shut down a track.
100%.
It's not going to because it has the lore and the history. And a lot of these are like early racing history, right? When it was super sketchy. But we still have them today. It's still happening. The other one that I'll throw in as my honorable mention is going to be Monaco, only because of the blind turn factor.
Right.
Monaco's not a very fast track. There's really only one section of Monaco that is fast, and that's when you're going through the tunnel, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the turn right before the tunnel, the turn right before you get it is blind. And we've seen last year Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz, right? They slammed into each other because one didn't know the other was stopped there.
Yep.
And then also when you're coming out of the tunnel, you'll know this if you ever watch the driver cams or anything. They do Monaco in the day. It's not a night race. The tunnel's dark. When you leave the tunnel, it's extremely bright.
Yeah.
And there's a chicane like 50 meters after that turn.
Yeah, if any of you have ever been in a dark room and then you walk out and it's bright outside and you're like, oh, geez, oh, God, I can't see anything.
But now be going 200 miles an hour when you walk outside. Okay, now we'll get into our list, and here's how we want to do this. There is a call to the audience. We are going to be posting, I think, on Reddit and probably Facebook if we can figure out how the poll thing works. We're going to be posting a poll. So Jeremiah and I are going to share our top 3 most dangerous tracks each. We're going to scale these up as we go. And then we want you, the F1 fans, to vote on whose list do you think is more dangerous. Which set of 3 tracks would you least like to be the driver behind the wheel of? Jeremiah, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I'm going to start with this. First of all, I would like to be a driver on any track, but...
Okay, hang on real quick. Picture this. You get the keys to the Haas.
Oh, gosh.
K-Mag's car. He's out for the race. He's got a broken wrist. You're ready to go.
Oh, no.
You're lining up on the grid in Spa, and it is pouring down rain.
Got it.
Are you leaving the starting line?
Dude, I just picture myself whenever, like, if you've seen the Niki Lauda versus Hunt documentary that they had, the drivers are just staring at each other in the rain, and then they both shut their visors and look forward. That's what I just picture myself doing, but on the inside, I'm just screaming, just, oh, God, oh, no.
The scariest situation. And then right when those lights start going, you hear the...
Oh, no.
All right, kick us off. What's your least dangerous of the most dangerous?
I'll start with Suzuka. That's the Japan Grand Prix. Now, I put this one here because we just saw it happen, and I've done some research on it. We did some research for our preview. It is a dangerous track.
It really is.
I mean, first of all, it rains constantly, every single time, almost every single year that they've ever held a race there, except for pretty much this year, I believe. 17 drivers have lost their lives at this track. Now, that's not all Formula One. That's multiple different motorsports series, but that is still very concerning. It's the erratic blind corners. It's the limited runoff areas. And then, of course, 130R, where it's just flat out left-hander. Your foot on the gas. Your foot's not even anywhere near the brake.
And we saw this last week, I believe, Lewis Hamilton overtake Esteban Ocon at 130R, and it looks sketchy even when it's done correctly.
Just imagine you're going, first of all, you're going into a corner full speed, and there's a guy right next to you doing the same thing, but a little bit faster, so he's going past you. That's horrifying.
Horrifying.
I will say, the average speed for Suzuka rather is 143 miles per hour, but the top speed going at around 196. That's pretty fast. It's not one of the faster tracks in the entire season, but that's pretty quick.
It's up there, and so I know I'm debating you, but I do want to give some validity to your points, I guess. 143 miles per hour on average. Most of the circuits on the F1 track are running between 110 and 130 on average. The ones that we're going to be talking about today are above that.
All of them.
So this is and that, again, if a lap is a minute and a half, that means for most of that minute and a half, you're going 150 miles an hour.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So Suzuka has been changed a couple times. They've changed some corners, changed some chicanes so that it was a little bit safer.
Sure.
But nothing like, I think, what we're going to get into a little bit later on.
One last thing I'll add for Suzuka. We talked about this in the preview and the recap, I think. The elements of that track combine a lot of the different elements that we see elsewhere, right? It has upwards left-bound chicanes. It has hairpins. It has flat out turns. It has the S-curves. So when you're a driver and you're put in that situation, your car can't be tailored to all of those,
right,
like it can be in very specific
So there's going to be some parts that are a little sketchy.
If your car is more aero-focused, you'll do the turns well, but you might not do 130R as well. If your car is more top speed well, you might do one,
the hairpin will be rough. The S-curves will be rough.
It just depends. Okay, let's go to Baku, as old Crofty likes to put it.
Azerbaijan.
Because like Jeremiah says, he doesn't like to say Azerbaijan, so he just sticks with Baku. This is the Baku City Circuit. This is my least of the dangerous just because we don't actually have that many instances here. But the instances that could happen here might propel this to the top of the list if they ever actually occur.
Horrifying.
So if you're not familiar with Azerbaijan and the Baku Circuit, it runs literally right through the downtown main streets of Baku, which is a historic city, I think, on the Caspian or the Black Sea. Got a lot of historical buildings. There's a castle in part of it, which you go up through. And that could be dangerous in itself. So the castle turn it's not a road. It's like an alley. Yeah. And I think when they were designing the track, they were like, oh, yeah, this looks cool. Oh, this is a good. Oh,
we got to figure out a way to get up there.
Can you move this wagon out of the way? Yeah. We'll make this a street. And so they did that. So that could be a dangerous spot. But the big thing with Baku, much like Mexico, is it has a gigantic straightaway section. Massive. From the last turn until you pass the start-finish line until turn number 1, it's miles.
That's my favorite.
It's like 2 miles long. And you can get up to 212 miles per hour. And I question that could be faster with DRS. You can get up to 212 miles an hour. It's about 340 kilometers per hour. Here's where it gets dangerous, and I'm going to quote Nico Rosberg in part of this. The pit lane, which is slightly before the start-finish line, has a wall in front of it that is the sketchiest wall I've ever seen on an F1 track because it is perpendicular to the track with drivers going 212 miles an hour 4 meters away from it. So a couple years ago, Max Verstappen was going down the main straightaway and a piece on his car broke, a tie rod or axle, something like that, and his car veered off to the right, into the wall, safely. Had he gone to the left, he would have plowed straight into a perpendicular wall at 212 miles per hour. And as Nico Rosberg puts it, if your car breaks in front of the pit lane, no more you.
Jeez, what a rough comment.
But that's a guy that's been there.
I mean,
right?
I get it. I mean, you have to understand that that's a guy that has passed that wall multiple times.
100 times. And he's seen, if that's in his head, that's in every driver's head. Please don't brake. Please don't brake. Please don't brake. And they can't take their foot off the throttle. They've got to go full speed.
You've got to go full speed
through the whole thing. So that's Baku. Not too many instances in its time racing there, but there could be.
Yeah. Emphasis on the not many incidents there because it's not that dangerous. But I'll let you have it, I guess.
Move on to your next one.
All right.
I'm done with that.
Spa-Francorchamps. And I could have mispronounced that, and I'm sorry if I did. But Spa.
Yeah.
48 driver fatalities at this track.
You're playing a history card to the viewers right now.
It's working.
You're picking the old ones.
I'm picking the old ones, but I'm also picking, in my mind, the most dangerous. Because you got to understand, first of all, Spa, it rains a lot. Again, that's another one you're going to have. And like you even said in your example, picture you're sitting there at Spa and it starts to rain.
It's always raining.
Because it's terrifying. So obviously, we've got 154 miles per hour, 200 miles per hour as the top speed going around this track. Eau Rouge, where it's just a rapid downhill, and then it whips to the right and starts climbing up Raidillon blind because you can't see what's on the other side of that. If there's a driver that's broken down right on the top of Raidillon, right on the outside of it, you can't see him at all, and you're going full speed flat out, mind you, because that's what the turn requests. It's flat out.
And that's where we've seen the most recent issues. The last 3 or 4 have all been right there at Raidillon, where and the cameras don't even really see that uphill camera.
They don't.
It just shows an exploding car coming over the hill.
Now, this is where it gets crazier. Because of the layout of this track, you will experience different weather at different parts of the track. So imagine you're doing like 75% of this track. It's all dry. You get around the back half, and all of a sudden it's a downpour, and you're on softs.
Yeah, when they have to come on the broadcast and they say, it's raining at turn 13. Well, why isn't it raining everywhere?
Raidillon is just one of, or not Raidillon, Spa is just one of those tracks where, I mean, you've seen multiple incidents happen there. You've seen multiple wrecks happen there. Everybody has complained about Eau Rouge and Raidillon at Spa. Every single person in every single motorsport category. It's just one of those tracks that drivers genuinely fear.
And you even have the, it's after turn 1, or maybe it is turn 1, but it's that super narrow pinched turn where it's more than 180 degrees and they come back on each other, and they always slide into each other at that turn. And that's the turn right before Eau Rouge and Raidillon.
Exactly.
So you're breaking your car apart before you're asking it to go 200 miles an hour uphill while turning.
They've changed the layout of Spa multiple times. Putting the start finish at multiple different areas, changing chicanes, adding this, adding that, subtracting parts of the track just because of, well, for one, of how long it was.
Didn't it used to be like 20 miles long?
Dude, if you're looking at the original length of the circuit, I can't find it. That's sad.
It was like triple what it is.
It's like
now.
10 kilometers.
Yeah.
And that's going down to 7, 6 for the actual track nowadays. But the fact is, they've had to do new layouts just to bring the track back up to code. I mean, I would consider this one of the more dangerous tracks in the calendar, if not the most.
Okay, counterpoint. What if it doesn't rain? Is it one of the most dangerous ones?
It's still a blind uphill flat out.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Other counterpoint, it is raining, and it's usually raining at the start of the race. They're already on their wets or their inters.
It's still dangerous. How many times have we seen cars crash out on wets and inners just because it's just a little bit more wet than the tire can handle?
You know, I saw Charles Leclerc lose grip while he was on inters and everybody else was on slicks.
Yeah, see, now that's something right there.
Okay, anything else for Spa?
That's it for me. Why don't you give me your number 2?
Okay. We are going to Singapore. And you might notice a theme with my tracks as they are all street circuits so far. And Jeremiah's are all the ones that are out in the country in the woods.
Granted, Spa is technically considered a street circuit, but...
no.
But it is.
Like a rural street circuit. A country street circuit.
Country
the
road
farm
circuit.
to market circuit. Yeah, no. Okay, we're going to Singapore. This is the Marina Bay circuit. So I ruled out everything that happened in the 60s because the 60s was the Singapore Grand Prix, but it wasn't at Marina Bay Circuit. It was somewhere else. So they had 8 runnings there. I've taken those out of this evaluation because there was a lot of sketchy stuff that happened then too. They've had 14 runnings of this since 2008. Since 2008 at Marina Bay Circuit, they have had a safety car every single year, including 2023.
Jeez.
There have been, what one site said, a total of 24 safety cars. I question that. I think there's been more. But a safety car, it's the only track with a safety car every single year. There's no other track even close.
No, it's hard to argue with that.
And with it being a street circuit, there's no runoff area anywhere. The only runoff area you have is when there's 2 or 3 chicanes that have overlapping curb sections. If you want to consider that runoff area, you could. Otherwise, your runoff area is walls because there's buildings next to the streets. They went so far this year that they removed the chicane between turns 16 and 19 because it was accounting for 33% of all accidents at the circuit. So maybe it gets a little bit safer, but who knows? The other thing is that you're in Singapore, and if you're familiar with like Asian cities like Singapore, Tokyo, Beijing, things like that, it's not like American big cities where there's a lot of room. Like you think of our parkways and avenues and 6-8 lane roads. No. These are like 2 to 4 lane roads in the main city. You're whipping in and out of turns. You're doing all that crazy stuff. There's the blind turn right before they go across the bridge. It's a blind hairpin turn, might I add. And then the final factor I'll throw in for Singapore. It is so hot at that race every year. Watch the drivers when they get out of the car. They are drenched. I believe it was Carlos Sainz when he got out this year. I mean, the dude was covered in head to toe. So you're adding in, hey guys, I want you to go 200 miles an hour in this tiny little town in these fast cars, and you're exhausted the whole
sweat
time.
in the eyes.
You can't see. It wasn't at Singapore, but was it George? That
was
one race
George.
where he's like, is it raining or is this sweat? That is sweat, George. That is sweat.
He didn't even ask if it was sweat. He just said, it's raining. He didn't even ask a question. He made a statement.
It's raining.
It's raining.
So that plays into it. And again, these city circuits, you have the blind turns, you have the speed. It's always at night too. It's sketchy, man.
Counterpoint.
Okay.
Bringing us back to Monaco. This isn't the how easy is it to bump corners and bump walls track or
It's significantly
episode.
faster than Monaco.
It's significantly faster than Monaco, but here again, if you tap a wall, you're pretty much staying within the confines of the walls. You tap the walls, bang, 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 back and forth, and then that's about it. In my opinion.
It's not
There's
pinball.
But I mean, there's not any, I guess, besides the blind hairpin, or there's not really any times where it's like in Baku, you had the wall that was completely perpendicular to the track. I'll admit to that. That is horrifying. Singapore doesn't have anything like that.
Let me add one more thing.
Okay.
The pit lane entry. Tell me that's not the sketchiest pit lane entry
It
on the
is.
F1 calendar. The pit lane entry is a blind turn around a blind turn with a foot-tall sausage curb
Shout
on
out
it.
to Fernando Alonso.
Shout out to Alonso popping it twice or 4 times because he went over and over. I don't know what he did. So, yeah, tell me that that's not sketch.
I got one worse than that.
Okay. This is your bring it home
This
one.
is the creme de la creme. There is no better than this.
better make it worth
Doesn't even
it.
matter what your last one is.
Okay.
The Temple of Speed.
It's a great name.
It is. It also strikes fear.
It's too bad they actually took out the dangerous parts of that track, like the bank turn.
But it's the fact that they had to. It's the fact that they had the amount of, I've been saying this about Suzuka and Spa, but the amount of changes that they did to Monza is unreal.
But if you're a modern fan and you're watching the sport, it just doesn't have that
If you're a
element to
modern
it.
fan and you're watching this sport, you understand that these cars are going faster than any other track on the entire calendar. And at one point, cars are just flying off the track at Parabolica, the very last corner. These guys are basically going flat out around that corner. There's a slight lift in the beginning as you enter it, but then you're going flat out because the very exit is the straight, the start-finish straight. So they got to bring as much speed as they possibly can through that corner and exiting it as fast as they possibly can.
I'll add real quick to your notes. This track has a full throttle percentage of 73%.
Meaning 73% of the time, your foot is matted to the ground.
Yeah, it's sketch.
Now I'll bring up the history factor.
Okay.
52 drivers lost their lives at this track. But it goes further. Incidents at Monza in the past, 35 spectators have died at this track. Now, that's obviously, I believe it was only 1 or 2 instances where the car flew off the track and went barreling into the crowd. That's what that is that you're looking at. But it's the fact that can happen. If we were to draw that to a percentage, I mean, anytime you buy a ticket to Monza, you have like a 0.0001% chance of dying. It's probably lower than that. But the fact is it's not 0.
And it's like you mentioned, like especially on like Parabolica or whatever, there's so much force being exerted towards the outward part of the car that if their tires lose grip or something happens to the car, they are pushing out towards where the fans are and into walls and fences and all that stuff.
So you mentioned changes to the track. The very, very first turn of the track, turn 1, they've had to alter this multiple times.
Because it was so fast.
Well, at one point, there wasn't even a chicane there. It just went straight on in, and they were just flying flat out right into the second. I guess for us, it would be turn 3, but it's the long, winding right-hander. Excuse me. They've had to alter the chicane multiple times in an attempt to slow these drivers way down before they go into this long right-hander because of the fact that that's where drivers were flying off. On top of that, you have famous drivers that have lost their lives at this track, like Alberto Ascari, who now has a chicane that bears his name. That chicane also altered because of the fact that they lost Alberto Ascari at that track. I mean, this track, if there was ever a place where they had to make the most changes, in my opinion, to the track so that they could keep it legitimate and keep it in the calendar, it's got to be Monza. I mean, they made changes to the grandstands because the grandstands were proven to be unsafe.
Yeah, and the Temple of Speed's a good name, but I think they made so many changes that it's not going to be one of the more dangerous ones going forward. And we're going to continue. Like, these tracks are going to get better. Like,
and they'll evolve.
True. That's true for all of them. But in terms of sketchiest right now, I don't know if it beats my number 1.
Let's hear it.
Okay. This is my favorite race. You know this is my favorite race.
Yeah.
The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at the Jeddah Corniche circuit. City circuit again. Although this is kind of a fabricated city circuit because this was built for they built a city circuit. Yeah,
it was a purpose-built track, but then the city was around it.
But they meant it does follow the model of city circuits where the tracks are very narrow. They're all surrounded by barriers and a lot of quick turns and all that. Okay, I've got some stats for this one.
Let's hear it.
It has 3 massive DRS zones. Okay? Similar to Monza, though, you're at full throttle 71% of the time around Jeddah. A street circuit. Think about this. When you look at Monza on a zoomed out view, like a bird's eye view, you only really see like 3 real turns.
You also see the parts of the track they had to take out because it was too dangerous.
Took out, keyword. When you look at Jeddah from a bird's eye view, there's like 1,000 turns and they're going just as fast at this track. There are 27 turns, most of which are taken flat out. The only ones that aren't taken flat out are the 2 chicanes and the 2 hairpins at the end, although they're not really hairpins. Tell me that is not terrifying if you're a driver, that you're in a 2-lane road with barriers surrounding you on both sides going flat out 90% of the time through turns. The average speed for this city circuit is 157 miles per hour. What was the one that we brought up earlier? Suzuka, 143, which isn't a city circuit. The top speed, 202 miles an hour at a city circuit. Sergio Perez, what is he known for?
He's the king of the streets.
That being the
Minister of Defense in Mexico.
But he wins street circuits. That's what he does. He is on record saying that Jeddah is the most dangerous place on the F1 calendar.
Whatever.
The guy that wins all the street circuits is terrified to go out there and race for his family. He puts his honor on the line every time he straps up in Jeddah. Remember back to last year, I think it was last year, maybe it was 21, Mick Schumacher in qualifying, gunning it, because they have to. If you take your foot off, if you're under that 71% full throttle mark, you're qualifying last. Right. You have to be perfect in this track. He hits one curb, like a fraction of an inch, loses control, slams his car into the wall at 150, 160 miles an hour, and the entire right side of his car blows up and falls off. because he made a millimeter of a mistake.
Was it the right side or the left side?
One of the two. He was spinning around, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture it in my head. Either way, one of the sides of his car was gone. Also, picture this. Max Verstappen, currently the world's best driver, right? Probably no argument on that. He has the best lap that never was, and we've talked about it before. In qualifying, he was trying to match Lewis Hamilton, and those camera shots, I highly encourage you to go watch. If I have some way of putting this in the description of the video, I will. Go watch Max Verstappen's best lap that never was in qualifying. Was it 21 or 2020?
I couldn't tell you.
The camera angles that they got on that lap are so great because it always cuts to a front-facing camera of him, and it's literally a half a second of him whipping around one turn, then it cuts to a camera of him whipping around another turn and whipping around another turn, and he is getting so close to the wall that even the announcers are like, he's hitting every single wall, but he's not, until finally he does.
And then it's obvious.
And then it's over. And now luckily he's able to slow down and just barely kind of run into a wall a little bit, and he gets out and kicks a tire. But if you're somebody like Mick Schumacher, you don't have that kind of experience, you don't have that kind of reaction time, you're going into a wall at 202 miles an hour. That is the Jeddah circuit and why it's the most dangerous track.
I'll give you, it has a lot of different points. I can definitely see how it would be the second most dangerous track on the F1 calendar, but we have to remind you that Monza is 20 miles per hour faster in the top end. 10 miles per hour on average. It's wide open, but that doesn't matter if your brakes fail and you're going 220 miles an hour straight towards a wall. It doesn't matter how much runoff there is.
There's no walls.
There is. The grandstands are sitting on something.
They're back away from the track.
224 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour.
Here's the other thing that you've got going for you. Monza has what, 100-year history?
True.
Jeddah's been being raced for like 6 years, maybe. Not even that.
Right, so they don't even have the knowledge of changing those scary corners yet. Meanwhile, Monza, they already have had it for so long that they
literally
had
changed one of the chicanes.
They had one change. I'm changing my opinion. They had one change at the Jeddah Corniche circuit. Meanwhile, Monza has had a complete overhaul where they took out an entire section of the track because it was the most dangerous track on the calendar. Banked corners that are no longer even used anymore because drivers were flying off the top end of it.
So it's no longer dangerous, right? They fixed
Look,
it.
if we want to talk about right now, right this second, you can have an argument for either one. But if we're talking all-time danger, Monza triumphs over Jeddah, and it's not even close.
This is not for us to decide.
You're
We're
right.
going to keep going back. The reason Jeddah's my favorite is because I think it's the most dangerous and it provides the most quick cut action. Is Monza your favorite track?
Monza's not my favorite track for passing purposes, but for just the speed itself.
The thrill of the sport.
The fact that you're watching the actual speed of these cars at their top end, what they're capable of doing, that's why it's my favorite.
So it's not for us to decide. Like I said, we will put a poll out on Reddit. I know we can do it on Reddit. Facebook we'll have to figure out, but we'll put a poll out. We'll link it in the description. So go vote. We're going to list our 3 sets of tracks, and you pick which one you would be more terrified to race in if you were an F1 driver.
My top 3 most dangerous tracks, in my opinion, from least dangerous to most dangerous: Suzuka, Spa, and Monza.
And my top 3 most dangerous tracks are Baku or Azerbaijan, Singapore, and Jeddah.
Let us know what you guys think. Let us know in the polls. We do want to see the results of this because I want to know that I'm right.
All right, guys, let us know. We'll see you.
Bye, guys.